sweaty balls.
Superstar, sweat if you want to, sweaty balls.
Do y'all remember the episode that Betty White was on and they talked about her crusty muffins? Because that's one of my like all-time favorite SNL moments.
Crusty muffins.
Yeah.
I haven't seen Saturday Night Live in
This was
probably
like
20 years.
90s. I remember it was Anna Gasteyer and Molly Shannon, and they had like this radio talk show where they were like, really deadpan. I'm very excited to have you on my show today. And that was when they did the sweaty balls bit, but they had Betty White on there, and she was talking about her crusty muffin. It was amazing.
Yeah, I remember. They were funny. Those people were funny.
But that's what I feel like right now.
Yeah.
Wearing these headphones crowded around a mic with you.
Like a microphone checker. How is my crusty muffin? Well, how about I prefer crumpets over muffins.
Oh,
I
crumpets.
do love a good crumpet.
Such an underappreciated.
We have some.
You have crumpets?
We bought some crumpets.
Wow.
Yeah.
I actually never had a crumpet.
You've never had a crumpet? I'm going to go on a limb and tell you guys I like crumpets more than I like English muffins.
Yeah.
They are far superior.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. I love English muffins, so that's saying it.
You would love a crumpet.
You would. They're a little bit
Maybe
more
I have had a crumpet.
Spongy.
They're spongier.
And so they absorb like whatever you put on it better with the holes.
Yeah. They're more bubbly holes.
You know, you get some honey on there.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Talking about stuff I would never put on an English muffin.
It's a taste
Excuse me?
explosion. You don't put honey on an English muffin? What do you put on an English muffin?
Like eggs and stuff.
Kickback sauce.
Oh, I put usually peanut butter and honey.
That's cool, too. I have no judgment.
I put 4 tablespoons of Frank's.
Jesus. 4 tablespoons.
I put 4 tablespoons of Frank
I
Red
do the
Hot.
cinnamon challenge on an English muffin.
On your crusty muffin.
You put 4 tablespoons of cinnamon on your crusty.
Yeah. Yeah.
Once again, we've devolved.
Yeah.
Straight to jail. So, should we introduce the show?
Hey everybody, welcome to the BivBros Show, the podcast. I was working on some levels because we were trying a new thing today. Evan is in his Atlanta studio, of course, and I'm in my Chicago studio. But joining me in studio is our dear friend Alison Kendrick live.
Yeah, in Chicago.
In Chicago, so we're huddled around a mic. So if anything gets too hot, then you know.
Sorry, not sorry.
Yeah, get over it.
What if it gets too hoth?
Hoth. If it gets too hoth
If it gets
or
too-
hot.
Too goth.
If it gets too goth, then you're
It
going
might
to
get.
the right place.
It might just get goth
It's gonna get pretty
up in
gothic
here
up
in
in
this
her.
episode.
It really, actually, yes. Because what are we talking about today? We're doing a little post-mortem of a experience that we all experienced together, a tour that we all experienced together.
An experience that we all experienced.
And then, of course, that's going to lead naturally to a lot of talk about vampires.
Yep.
They're so hot right now. They're so hot right
Vampires
now.
are so goth right now.
They're so goth right now, vampires. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how are you, brother? How's Atlanta, Georgia? Good?
Atlanta, Georgia is a little chilly for us, not by Chicago standards, of course, but it's been on the chillier side. Otherwise, it's great. It's great. It's it's Atlanta.
Yeah.
I don't know what they do here. What do people do here?
I feel
No,
like
it's
you've
fine.
been
Great.
saying that about Atlanta for a while.
Yeah.
I remember talking to you
have.
like in 2015 and you saying that.
Well, I'm a miserable shut-in. So no, everything's fine. Everything's good. Everything's dandy. I think Chicago's having a pretty mild winter, so it's it's probably not too hot there right now.
No, it's not.
It's more hot here than hot there, so to speak. Yeah. So what are we talking about? We're talking about the Jump Tour first.
We're talking about
right?
a Little Children tour that ended in December. So it's been a couple of weeks for us to process and sort of
Still
take
recovering
notes.
from.
Yeah, a little
Are
bit.
you still recovering? Yeah, I'm not. I'm not fully like back in my groove yet.
Yeah.
I'm still kind of feel like I'm back at it, but kind of spinning my wheels a little bit, going, what am I supposed to do? Yeah, it's for those of you who have never been on a tour of any kind. Doesn't have to be music related, or I should say, for those of you who have been on tours, you will know that they can be quite tiring. In fact, we have a first timer with us today who can attest to this. Probably, it takes a lot. You're on a, I think from outside looking in, people might think that it's just fun and partying all the time or whatever, and then playing music, but it's not. The reality is not quite like that. In fact, Alison, we can just ask you what did you think this experience was going to be like before you did it? And then once you were in it, and then once you were done, did any of that match up with what you were expecting?
Yeah, I thought it was going to be fun and partying all the time.
And it was neither fun.
Because I had never met the members of Jump Little Children before going on tour with them, so just no.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. Now, I think the thing that shocked me the most, even though both of you warned me about this on this very podcast, was how little together time there was. There really wasn't a lot of downtime, and there really wasn't a lot of time that we all spent together as much as I thought that there would be. It was kind of everybody goes to their own corners and does their own thing, and then we come together and get the jobs done that we need to do, So I think that surprised me the most.
Yeah. But did you feel like, I mean, I can speak for myself, because you're, in this case, 11 people in a rolling hotel room for the most part, and you are working together the entire time, any moment that you have for yourself, you immediately grab it. Did you have that experience for yourself as well?
Yes, I did. And I think you kind of take for yourself what you need, which for me is usually socializing. So,
so we were like crawling in our holes, and you were like, "Oh, where's everybody?"
I need to recharge. I'm an extrovert.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
But too, I mean, it was fun to be on said rolling home because we got to roll into a different city, and I got to see friends who live dispersed all over the country. So that was fun for me. And I tried to, so that was one thing that surprised me. I thought I would have, time in each city I know we had talked about, like, we were going to try and find the best lattes and milkshakes and, granola emporiums. And there wasn't.
That went out the window pronto.
It did.
Oh, yeah. Bye.
So that did shock me. I had said, let's watch a bunch of Marvel movies, and you, Evan, had laughed at me and said, when? And we didn't have a lot of time to watch Marvel movies.
Two things that aren't fair about having someone so new to the road in with people who've kind of did it for many, 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 many years is that we developed habits that we're not even aware of. And Evan and I talked about in the last podcast that you forget when you're not on the road, and you think you can get on a bus and you can carry on a relatively normal lifestyle or do some work or do anything in downtime, and it's just not fair. So not only did we have these coping mechanisms that we had honed over more than a decade of touring, and you were like, oh, but that's not my mechanism, but yeah. So then you had a couple of things that you wanted to kind of experience, and we were experiencing it on our own ways. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
On your own levels.
On our own levels. Yeah.
So I do want to kind of course correct, though. It was a lot of fun. So even though there were things that were surprising, we did have a good time. I did get to see people that I don't get to see every day, including the members of Jump Little Children and Hula Hi-Fi.
Right, yeah.
We're going to talk in a minute about a fun little thing that Matt and I did all along the way.
Yes.
So there were opportunities. But you two were absolutely right about the limited time and mental space we would actually have. And I didn't listen to you. So yes, I was surprised, but no, I shouldn't have been surprised.
But you can't really. Yeah. It's a kind of thing. It's one of those things you can't listen to someone tell you and understand until you're in the situation and you are experiencing it. Mm-hmm. So I was telling Alison the other day that another person that had never really been on the road like that was our friend Danica Dora, and we were kind of we were hyper aware of trying to give these two newbies a fun time and to walk away and have a positive experience, and yet also try to take care of ourselves.
Yes.
It's very complicated.
Yeah, I know. I learned from the past couple of tours, now that I'm 45 and not 20, whatever, that, or even 30, whatever. I learned to be greedy with my energy, because one thing that we do, that Jump does, that maybe not every band does, is we there's the work that you do during the day. There's the loading, the unloading, just kind of the grunt work, the sound checking, whatever, and the performing, which you have to enter the performance with what you hope as a certain energy level, right? So you can do your job correctly and leave it on the stage as well as you're able to. But then what we do that other bands might not do as much is we always make a point to try to talk to people who come to shows. And that is kind of the fulcrum point where it can go, you can get really drained. And it's not, I don't mean that talking to people is, gosh, you guys are draining us. I just mean that, you're on and then you're still on. You're trying to keep your energy high and talking to people and thank them for being there and all that good stuff. And then by the time you're wrapped up, you have to be really careful, because you're like, okay, now I got to be in bed. I got to make sure I didn't touch anyone's hand and touch my face, because it's winter and whatever. So I learned in the past couple of tours, if I wasn't really greedy, no matter, if friends or whoever came up and said, hey, you want to go to a bar or whatever, after the show, the answer was always, hell no. No way. I'm getting in my Jimmy Jams, because if I don't, tomorrow is just effed. So, I know it's such a funny thing. I think imagine it's just so different than how people imagine. We're super nerdy and wallflowers. It's, we've never been the Motley Crue model of uppers and downers and booze and hospitals, whatever. We've never done that routine. Anyways, okay, I hope that you had fun, and I hope that Danica had fun. It's a wacky old thing.
I did. I had a lot of fun, and I've talked to Danica a little bit after the tour, and we've just shared our kind of gratitude with each other, not to get too hokey here, about what an experience it was, and how lucky for both of our first tours to be with you guys. We know that we kind of got a royal treatment traveling around on a real live tour bus. You've kind of set a high expectation for future tours. But yes, shocked, delighted, all of those things. But I feel like we really did all collectively hit our stride towards the end of it, and I definitely walked away with a really positive, memory of all of it. So, and you two are still talking to me, so I'm thankful for that as well.
We're still here. We're still in the room. It's still
in the room.
You're still visiting the studio.
I wish Danica was on the show. I'd love to hear her thoughts about it. Certainly one of my highlights of that month was getting to play with her and Josh, and play that beautiful music. It was so much fun. I know that getting on a bus is on your first go out is maybe not necessarily the best way to do it. But
or is it?
Or maybe it is, as long as every other time out you're on a bus.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Yes, of course. Spoiled. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh. Anyways,
Spoiled.
did anything surprise you about the experience?
It didn't surprise me, but it did reinforce how hard y'all work with everything that you just said, from load in to load out, but then the additional work that goes into being active parts of the community that you've helped create, and just kind of what professionals you are. So getting to see that firsthand, it just always is a reminder of how hard creatives, artists, musicians do have to work to do what they love. I was surprised that I never got sick of going to shows.
Well, that is surprising.
I'm surprised by that.
Yeah.
A month full of shows.
Yeah.
The same. And Jump very famously, does not switch up the set list very much. And we never switch up arrangements of songs. We're not a jam band. So if I were you, I'd be like, cool, y'all are going on. I'm going to go back to the bus and watch Mandalorian.
I candidly thought that might happen, and it never did. I always felt kind of gripped by this. I can't miss out. I need to know what's going to happen.
That's fun.
So I think that surprised me how much fun I continuously had at the shows. I keep waiting for my own tipping point of when, like, Jump Little Children isn't my favorite band anymore, and it hasn't happened yet.
Okay.
So weird.
Wow.
Brother, did anything surprise you about this experience?
So I think I've mentioned before, maybe I mentioned on another podcast. I get so confused, but I feel like this one was a little bit hard for me. Just based on missing home more, and the fact that this was not our first rodeo, not even since 2015, that this really was the tour that we started to hit a stride. We started to get used to things like a tour bus. We started to, we played the same venues that we played last year for the most part. So I kind of was pleasantly surprised at how, even though it was difficult, I also was pleasantly surprised at how well I acclimated to that, and how I did take care of myself at the end. It was a little sort of training wheels, but I was like, okay, here's a job, and here's what the job needs to be done, and then like if I was feeling a little bit tired or run down or exhausted, that the extent that the fans pumped me back up, brought me back, and gave me a really solid reason and solid foundation to be on the road and to do this every night. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That was it's not surprising, but it's always surprising. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I know I say it almost every time. So, and I've written about it and I talk about it, but then when it's actually happening, when you go out and you talk to people and they're, everybody said 20 years, and I cried in 20 years, and I was like, wow, I'm feeling you. I remember 20 years ago. I was there too, obviously, because that's why we're all here. But that sense of community that lives on, that exists outside of the band, always surprises me. And I know that's probably hard for people to believe, but it really is true. Because from this side of things, from being part of the thing that created the community, I joined the community as soon as I could, meaning I think you could take the stance of being, accepting the fact that you are the leader of a community or the person who starts it, but I wanted to be in it as soon as I could. So it just always shocks me that it's still going and so powerful, and it just means so much to me. So
yeah. And I noticed that too, and I'm in the unique position of having started in that community and crossed over, and just seeing how warmly I was embraced still as a part of that community.
Yeah,
did surprise me to see it from this side of it too, and to see just the warmth with which the fans greet you guys and are still so excited. I'm not shocked by that, but I was a little shocked by how readily I was embraced playing both sides.
That moment at the very last night of the tour, for those of you who don't know or weren't there, there was a large group of this community we keep talking about that gifted Alison, just basically gave her a token of their appreciation for what she had done and the time that she had spent with them, and she is one of them, and it's this community taking care of her, and it gutted me. I saw this happening, I experienced it, I went backstage, and I just wept. It just is so much bigger. It's so much bigger than Jump Little Children, and it really is so much bigger than us, and it's amazing.
And I couldn't cry, and everybody was waiting for me to cry because I'm known as being an emotional dirtbag sometimes.
Dirtbag.
And I think because I was shocked. I was legitimately shocked. I no part of my brain thought, you know what I bet people are going to do?
Yeah, they did a good job of
and so many of my friends that I love and trust and think I know so well kept it from me. The people that I was sharing a house with somehow hid it from, and I'm always that asshole who finds out about the surprise parties or anything else.
Yeah.
And I had no idea, because what part of me would think, you know what I bet people are going to do? So it's funny because people were waiting for me to cry, and I think that tells you how shocked I was. And I couldn't even have an emotional reaction because it felt like an out-of-body experience.
Yeah. Yeah, special stuff. Very, very special stuff.
I nominate that that the Opiates become the band. Right? Just let like you said, the community that's been around since the beginning of this band. I think you guys should just inherit the mantle.
Sure.
I think that's
we franchise.
Yeah.
We could just franchise, right?
Was it
like Guar or something?
We can. There can be like an all women version.
Yes.
Whatever, like different, like Man or Astro Man. Do you remember that band? Yeah, how they did that? Yeah. They had different versions of the same band touring around.
You joke, but that actually has been talked about on Opium, that the opening band should be like Doug McDonald playing the Jump songs that y'all refuse to play.
Oh man, I'm in.
I'm here for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
We
love it. So there are some times on a tour where you do have downtime. You have a day off. You have stuff, or certainly you have your own personal downtime, and you're going to watch a show. You're going to read a book. You're going to get in your bunk, whatever. And so for those of us who are Star Wars fans on the bus, every week an episode of The Mandalorian was coming out, and we all tried to gather around. There's a TV and whatever on the bus, so we would gather around and watch that. But Alison had a different idea.
Well, I actually can't take credit for this idea. I have several friends, both of you included, who for some time have been ushering me into various, television shows and movies and things like that were previously out of my comfort zone, because I am a, kind of self-proclaimed pansy. And one of those
a pansy?
A pansy.
About what?
About everything.
About everything.
Can you say pansy now? Is that
I can call myself that.
You can say. Okay, cool. Yeah. I don't know what people. I don't know what people can say anymore.
I am a delicate little flower, you guys. Come on, you know this about me.
You're special.
About specific things though. About horror.
I do not enjoy
horror.
Anything scary, remotely in the horror vein. So I had several friends who really have wanted me to watch Buffy for some time now. One of said friends,
Buffy the Vampire
Slayer.
The series, not the movie.
Not the movie, but I did go and watch the movie ultimately.
You did? It's not that bad actually. It's okay.
Pretty terrible actually.
I mean, it's not. It's no Joss Whedon, but it's I've seen worse. But anyway, you watch the important stuff, which is the series.
Yeah. So it was deemed originally probably too scary for you, but I just had this curiosity inside of me. So for one of the nights, we had a night off. The bus was stationed in Alexandria, Virginia, and Matt and I got off the bus and went to go stay with our friend Jenna, who in her apartment had the complete series box set, which led Matt and Jenna to kind of nerd out about it Buffy fans that they are.
Yes, Buffy. It's one of the first things that I know that someone's going to be okay. That I will, if there's any lull in the conversation, I can always bring it to Buffy. If I walk in and on their shelf I see the entire boxed set of Buffy or Firefly or some
you
Joss Whedon.
Like, remember season 3?
Remember season 3. But it's funny though. It is Joss Whedon specific because there is so much nerdery surrounding that man and the shows that he's created, and there is like it is a fanaticism that is, I'm not going to say unmatched, but it's pretty powerful. The Whedon verse. So anyway, I walk in, I see Buffy on the shelf. I'm like, oh, Jenna Cohen, yeah, let's go. And
so that was what I said. I was too scared of it, but I've been curious about it. And so Jenna immediately is like, yes, let's go. Let's do this, Buffy. We're going to. It's going to be fine. It's going to be great. I'm a little nervous because I've been told I might be too scared by it. So we put in, and so then Matt and Jenna kind of got into do we start around season 1? Do we just leap straight to season 2, which is really where the fun begins? But, no, let's start from Beauty Base Zero. Let's get all of the character background in. I had never seen the movie at that point, so they gave me a couple of details. We get on the couch, we start Buffy, and Jenna is clinging to me in case I get too scared, and she's very lovingly ushering me into the Buffyverse, and she tells me, I'm sorry that this is going to be a spoiler, but you've had 20 plus years to watch this. The very first opening scene, the vampires can change faces. They have their human face and their vampire face. So we meet one of the vampires. She's got her human face on. Jenna grabs me and says, I'm sorry, this is going to be really scary. And then she turns around, vampire face on, and I start laughing hysterically.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
It's so bad, but in a great and entertaining way. And I think that was the point that we all knew that I was probably going to be able to handle this.
Yeah.
So that night we stayed up too late for a night off. Like, we should have been good and gone to bed early, but we started Buffy. So, and then it ends on kind of a cliffhanger, and I had to know what happened next. So we ended up watching 2 or 3.
Yeah.
No, 2, maybe. I don't remember. Episodes that night. I'm hooked. Obviously, I have to know what happens next. I'm already. I really couldn't care less about Buffy, but I immediately hooked into Giles, Xander, and Willow as characters. And I really wanted to know what happens next. So I think it was the next night on the bus. Everybody, we load the trailer. We celebrated Cozy Pants o'clock, which is the time that we all get out of our real clothes and into our cozy pants, and everybody goes to their bunk. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, I want to watch more Buffy. So I opened Matt's curtain and asked him if he would please come watch Buffy with me.
Right.
And that was kind of how that little nightly ritual began.
Yeah, the nightly ritual of Buffy. And it's for people who don't either haven't experienced this or, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, that's a cheesy 90s TV show. You are correct. But there is something very strangely magical about it. And I think you have to be the right person maybe for it to hook you. And I think it's absolutely true. This show is not about Buffy. Sarah Michelle Gellar does a great job, but she's never in some ways the glue that grabs you to this particular series that did so well and was such a big part of people's lives. But I think that's the real test, is if you watch a couple of episodes and you're like, oh, there's a feeling that this gives me that I can't quite put, because it's so ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. But there's a feeling that I'm getting from this that either brings me back to high school or brings me back to having best friends or brings me back to killing vampires. I don't know whatever it does for you. Joss Whedon is able to just capture that in a bottle. And
as somebody who was a teenager in the 90s, what it did for me is it took me back to my teenage years in the 90s, but injected a really great storyline full of a bunch of different characters that I instantly cared about.
Yeah.
Which is I think interesting. And so it got me thinking, which is why I was like, hey, Matt and Evan, let's talk about vampires.
Yeah.
Because, so I mean, as I've already admitted, I don't have a lot of experience with a lot of different, horror genre, but I've at least watched Twilight, which is obviously, the only thing horror about Twilight is how bad it is. But it got horrible, me thinking. It's horrible.
Yeah.
It did get me thinking just about the different. And I've watched some episodes of True Blood. I've seen Interview with a Vampire a way long time ago. But it got me thinking about just the different ways that Hollywood portrays vampires, and it's fascinating. So I think one thing that the Twilight saga does with their vampires is that they make them the ultimate predator by making them so beautiful that you're just enraptured by them, and you have to, they lure you in that way, whereas a lot of other kind of more basic Hollywood vampires are these gruesome creatures who are killing machines. And so I couldn't help but kind of draw parallels there. And so I was interested in kind of hearing from you guys about what some of your favorite, so now that I'm as an update. So we finished season 1 of Buffy on tour. Actually, the last night that we were on the bus, we realized we had 2 episodes left. Matt and I had this moment of like, are we going to do this? And we did it.
Yeah.
I chewed through season 2 and now I watched half of season 3 in one weekend. So I am hitting my stride with this, but it kind of makes me curious.
So is the show right now. The show is also hitting its stride.
Oh my God. I mean, season 1, I agree with Matt and Jenna's, no, we need to start her from the beginning. But season 1 really is terrible. There's no budget. Like the makeup, oh, come on.
Yeah, no,
like,
come on. It's not terrible.
It's
dated.
They can't even like talk through their teeth. Like, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm going to kill you. Like, it's laughable.
Yeah.
It's entertaining, but laughable.
Do you think that's just because you're less forgiving as an adult or as someone who's just that's a consumer of modern filmmaking, like, or is it just it looks like a B movie, it doesn't matter?
Well, but the thing is that first of all, and that's an interesting segue too into like watching this as an adult versus watching this as a hormonal teenager. But also, like, no, because the difference between season 1 and so far seasons 2 and 3 are night and day. So it's not a 90s thing. It's a budget thing. It's a willing to take a concept, to actual mastery level performances thing. But, I don't want to give away spoilers, but there was a major villain throughout all of season 1 that you get to see again in season 3, and even he was so much better and so much more believable and scary as a villain in season 3. But it's interesting because I've Jenna has who we've mentioned a lot, but then also my friends Megan and Anna have been major Buffy fans since it came out. And so we have like a group chat going where I kind of give them updates about where I am and I'm reacting to these things. And it's so funny because things that absolutely shattered their hearts as teenagers, I could not care less about.
Right.
But then other things I'm getting, I'm betting when they watch, like, nobody was crazy about Giles, the Watcher librarian, and I think he is a hot man. Yeah. I do.
Yeah. He's still hot to this day.
I could not care less
Sir
about
Anthony Head.
Yes. I don't care about Angel. He kind of annoys me. So things that have happened to Angel that just wrecked and ravaged my friends as 16-year-olds, as a 37-year-old, I'm like, no, man, like, whatever. So I think that's all very interesting. But, now that I've opened this up, Evan, you got me to watch a zombie movie because you told me it was a musical, which it was. So I feel like I'm listening to true crime podcasts. Like, I feel like I'm just having this new, coming of age, awakening renaissance of like, what have I been missing out on all these years?
Yeah, pain and suffering. Bring it on.
Goth. Going back to your question, the interesting thing, probably Evan's experience is the same, is that vampires never scared us growing up, and they...
No, that's definitely not true.
Not scared, but just like, I didn't... It wasn't that I was not... I wouldn't not go to see something because a vampire was there. In other words, like, I read books. I read all of the Anne Rice books. I read other things about it. So I actually put off Buffy for that reason, thinking, "Oh, that's a jokey, corny, silly thing that is related to horror that I enjoy." But then I was both correct and wrong.
Because remind me, when did you watch Buffy for the first time? It wasn't when it aired.
No. It was my friend Nick our friend Nick Doyle was begging us to watch it. He was sort of the first person that said, "No, you really should give this a chance. It's gonna be great." The first episode I ever saw was in New York City with a friend, and for some reason, it happened to be one of the most famous episodes that you haven't gotten to in season. Well, that was season 5.
Is it the musical episode?
Well, that's also famous, but this other one is very famous, and it's a sort of an emotional experience, and I couldn't appreciate it at the moment, but then seeing, flash forward, seeing that same episode a number of years later with more experience under my belt, it really is extremely powerful television. But I saw this in New York, and I was like, yeah, okay, great, fine. But when I finally sat down and went on that journey, thanks to Nick, I
did
kind
you
of
start from the
it.
beginning? Did you?
I did from the very beginning. Yeah.
Evan, what was your entry into Buffy? Ooh, whoa, poor word choice.
My entry into Buffy. It was not long thereafter. I think Matt started doing it, and I was still of the attitude of like, WB can't be good, right? I hadn't been really, I had seen an episode of probably an early season on TV when I had TV years before I actually started watching it in earnest, and it definitely scratched something in my mind of like that I knew, like the things that I love about Scream, like that kind of like teen drama horror stuff. So but touching back on fear of vampires, I will, and then also kind of dovetailing with what you were saying about vampires in Hollywood. I remember being very young. Somehow I'd gotten a comic book version of Dracula, of the book Dracula, and being very scared of that. And I remember Dad I was, terrified to go to sleep that night. It was just the whole story just seemed so gruesome. And, I was convinced that Dracula was going to come in the night and take me away. And so Dad had to come and explain, well, that's probably not going to happen. So that was very scary. And then something that I will not probably for a moment that I will was burned into my psyche for the rest of my life was when the TV miniseries for Salem's Lot, the first one I should say, the original one, aired, and our grandmother Kiki had come up from Spartanburg, and we had all set up and we're watching it. I was still pretty young, a little bit older than after read Dracula, but it was that you, me, Mom, and Kiki. That was it in the living room, and turned out all the lights, and it was real spooky and fun. Everybody fell asleep except for me, and here I am up, and I don't know, I'm like 7, 8, 9, I don't know. And there's a scene towards the end where the protagonist is in this kind of root cellar, and he's trying to find like the main vampire, and he can't see him. And then back behind him, out of this hole, you can just see these white faces appearing out of the darkness. And I lost my mind. I was out of my mind. I've never been so scared seeing something. Now, I understand what you're saying, Matt, that's never driven me to not watch horror since then. I've never had the feeling of like, oh, I'm not, well, that's not true. I do have that feeling with horror that's really depressing or that's overly violent and visceral. Like but that's less about like, oh, I'm going to be scared and I don't like being scared. It's more like, it's I don't like being sad, or I don't like the feeling of pure disgust. So anyway, that's my early days experience with vampires.
I love, and as a side note, I love Johnny's earliest memory of vampires. I'll tell it real quick. He's 3, 4. He's in like preschool or something. Maybe kindergarten.
Matt was talking about Jonathan Gray, the bass player for Jump Little Children. For those of you who possibly don't know who he's talking about.
Right. Thank you. So yes, our bass player is 4 years old, and they're in an auditorium. All the kids. Basically, it sounds like the teachers just wanted to have like a little break, and they wanted to play a movie to entertain the kids.
Yeah.
So they filled this auditorium with kids, little tiny kids, and they kind of put on a movie, and they just sort of walk away thinking that the movie was probably, I don't know, Lady and the Tramp or something. Well, it turned out to be Nosferatu. the classic, 1920s film about this horrific, and I think they were called back into the auditorium by the screaming of an auditorium full of tiny children. I love that.
Man.
I love that story.
Poor Johnny.
Johnny had nightmares about that.
Yeah, Johnny
for a while afterwards.
So it can affect you, surely. I mean, it's scary. It's and you could go into the what vampires mean as far as what they are an indication of in society and so on and so forth. But it's funny that they're not super popular right now, but I'm feeling some sort of resurgence. I don't know what it is. I feel like it's almost
really?
time.
I thought that they've been gone for a while, and
it's been zombies for
it's been
zombies for
time.
way too long.
And I think we collectively as a society need something to erase the pain that Twilight, being kind of the most recent vampire.
See, but in Twilight wasn't ever a part of, I mean, I knew that Twilight was there. I actively ignored it. And I still had vampire fixes. Maybe, I guess, Underworld was a little bit before Twilight, and maybe overlapped a little bit, although the sequels got worse and worse and worse. So I was still getting my vampire fix despite that. But I guess you're right. Like, just in terms of mainstream public consciousness, it put a hurting on vampires. It didn't make it cool. No, they're not cool anymore. Although there's a new Dracula series out that I have not yet watched.
That's what I'm saying.
I guess you're right. Have you seen any of it?
I have not seen any of it. I don't. Yeah, I've not. I'm going to probably give it a shot. Is it worth it?
Well, I haven't seen it either. I was intrigued because it's by the same people, Mark Gatiss and Stephen Moffat, who created Sherlock. So that was intriguing.
Weird.
But then I saw a headline and I didn't read the article because I didn't want to see any potential spoilers. But on my favorite nerd blog, IO9, they say that it starts out strong and then gets really disappointing. Oh. So I haven't ventured. Of course, that's not going to be Elise's thing anyway, but I haven't started it yet, mainly because I'm still finishing up my Marvel Cinematic Universe timeline, and I'm getting towards the end. So once that's done, then I'll have bandwidth to watch
but
other
speaking of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, they are bringing back the one Marvel vampire character in the year or two coming. That's also interesting. Blade is coming back. Yeah.
The man responsible for there being a Marvel Cinematic Universe at all.
I know that you're very excited about DC's foray. No, that's not DC. That's also Marvel. I'm so sorry.
You're talking about Morbius.
Morbius.
It's the Sony side.
It's the Sony side. I know you're excited about that.
Come see the Sony side of
how excited?
Marvel.
Yeah. Well, it's not just that. It's It's my number one favorite actor in the world, portraying the character of Morbius,
who is
the
Jared
one and
Leto.
only Jared Leto.
Yeah, interesting.
He's the worst.
Okay, I was like,
worst.
Did you notice how though I took the mature approach and just said interesting and looked the other way? I couldn't even make eye contact with Matt in that moment because I was hiding my pain at thinking he was actually your favorite. So
I think we named a podcast or a video based on the fact that Evan really, really doesn't like Jared Leto.
Oh, I hate him so much. He actually would have been perfect on a show like True Blood that was just so over the top silly.
That's true.
He would have been great on that. And And True Blood has I gave up on True Blood after a while because the first couple of seasons was pretty fun. Although it's if you live anywhere in the South, the accents will insult you. And it's just ridiculous. And bless her heart, she's doing the best she can. But it just became about fairies and witches. It just got more and more absurd. But he would have been good on that, maybe. But I don't want to go see any movies with him ever again if I can avoid it.
Your favorite movie of his was Fight Club, of course, where he gets repeatedly beaten up, right?
Wait, he's in Fight Club?
Oh yes, he's the one his beautiful face gets disintegrated multiple times.
Oh, yeah.
So are you excited about Blade? Alison, have you seen the original Blades?
No, of course not. So maybe that needs to be, that was going to be one of my questions for y'all was, now that this is going well, where am I going next?
Right. So
yeah, that's a great question.
It is a very unique take on vampires. Probably one of the most unique. I mean, it did start off as a comic book character, and Evan's right. Blade really did sort of usher in this new world that we live in with everybody, superhero movies being the number one thing. So it's very interesting on that level. It's yeah. What's your tip? How would you urge her, Biv, to see?
There's so many vampire stories, and like where to go that is still light enough that you're gonna handle it. I mean, it's my favorite ones. We have a list of ones here that we're all kind of looking at. Dracula, Interview with the Vampire. That's like the teen story that Matt and I grew up with. Like when I was in high school, it was all about Anne Rice and those books, which you may or may not have read those books, or you might have seen some of those movies. The movies are not very good. Then of course Twilight, True Blood, Queen of the Damned. What We Do in the Shadows, I'd say, is definitely like the next step for you if you haven't seen that already. It's very funny, very light. It's not at all scary.
The TV show is great.
That's one that keeps coming back to me. I keep hearing that over and over and over again. So
just go for it. And I haven't seen the show yet. It's supposed, like you said, it's supposed to be great, or it is great. Do you like superhero movies, or that's just not your thing?
I do. I don't think I'm ever going to be like a comic book enthusiast, but like, of course I love all of the Marvel stuff. I have failed you in that I haven't even begun my timeline journey, but I've enjoyed watching them all the first time and out of timeline order.
You might like Blade. It's it's more it leans more superhero than vampire.
Vampires. Are you on True Blood now?
I am. Than vampire, but it's bloody. It's bloody.
It has one of Evan's favorite quotes of all time.
Yes.
Oh man, I use it pretty much daily. And that quote is.
I was about to say, this is where you share that.
There's always some motherfucker trying to ice skate uphill.
Yeah.
I was just about to say something about rolling uphill, but
yeah.
I one day I'll actually remember it.
Or is it? I always get it wrong. It's some motherfuckers are. Yeah, no. There's always some motherfucker trying to ice skate uphill, or some motherfuckers are always trying to ice skate uphill. It's one of those.
It's multi-use.
I mean, honestly, yeah. Like think about your day and how you could use either one of those interchangeably,
yeah.
and it describes some asshole in your life.
So much.
The other superhero-y alternative is the movie Underworld. You might like. It's. I wouldn't say it's scary at all. Did you like the movie The Matrix?
Yeah.
If you liked The Matrix, you might like Underworld. It's a vampires versus werewolves story.
So Twilight.
Well, but
sorry,
no.
they're not werewolves in Twilight. They're shapeshifters. Let's get that right or pay the price.
Sorry, say that again.
I said they're not werewolves in Twilight. They're shapeshifters.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's the
Boring.
sorry, spoiler alert. That's actually a twist you don't find out until the very end. That this whole time they thought they were fighting werewolves, and then somebody from some ancient vampire council, the Volturi, comes in and says, "Well, actually, they're shapeshifters." So that
So
was
they could be anything.
they
So-
could be, but I guess they were called to a specific form because of the influx of vampires in this area. Much like kind of Buffy is called to Sunnydale because it's on the Hellmouth. And so the shape that they took was werewolves because the werewolves were able to take down the vampires.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's come back to Twilight in a second because I'm a complete. I know nothing about Twilight, so actually, I want you to set that up for me. But let me just finish the underworld thought. No, it is nothing like Twilight. It is. There's no romantic triangle kind of situation. There is a romantic story sort of embedded in it, but it skews more superheroes and stuff and
Leather.
Everyone's leather
up,
vinyl.
super
It's very
tight.
Blade. I mean, it's very it's kind of Blade meets The Matrix.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's the first movie's fun. Like I said, the sequels get less interesting, but Kate Beckinsale in skin tight vinyl. Come
Yeah.
on.
You're good with
Yeah.
that?
Scott Speedman, whatever his name is.
It is Scott Staff from Creed.
I mean, they
Buzzing
pretty
from
much,
Creed?
They
He
were
looks-
separated at Birch.
At
Birch.
Birch. He really does look a lot like Scott Staff, the one of the lead actors. But my favorite, of course, is Bill Nighy. He has a turn that is just delightful.
I do love him.
It's
I want to
really
say
great.
that put him on the map.
It might have.
Like as a in the States anyway. I mean,
Whether
he was
or not
probably
he
famous
likes
in
it,
the UK, but he became super that and then Love Actually, and then he was probably super famous here.
Yeah.
He's a hoot. If for no other reason, watch it for that.
For sure.
And I don't think it's very scary. It's definitely more violent and serious than Buffy. It's not fun and snappy and Joss Whedon-y. Okay. But what else is? The only other place, honestly, the place you should really go next is Angel. Despite the fact that Angel, like Buffy, is the least interesting character on Angel. But that's okay. There's plenty. There's Fred. There's well, I don't want to give too many spoilers, but everyone else is awesome.
Well, but
It's
and Matt and I have come to blows over this. My least favorite character on Buffy is Cordelia. And it's so funny because so many people that I love and respect so much all love Cordelia, but I guess so she continues into the Angel verse.
It's pretty much we love Cordelia because of Angel.
Okay. So part of me
you're meant to hate her right now. She sucks.
Okay.
But she gets her shot at redemption.
Okay.
Yeah. And then there's characters not yet introduced to you who we probably shouldn't talk about yet, but it is, I'll say this about Angel, it's a far more consistent show. You've been riding the high up till now with Buffy, and then after season 3, it gets shaky. But Angel is pretty solid. It doesn't ever reach the high highs that Buffy did, but it's very solid all the way through. Plus, it has my one of my all-time Hollywood crushes, Amy Acker, is in it, and she's the best. So that's probably your next sidestep, and then go beyond vampires and just I'd say ride the Whedonverse and go straight to Firefly. Don't go home. Collect 200.
Firefly is 100. I've already told Matt that's definitely where I'm going next.
Yeah.
It just the only sad thing about Firefly is that it ends
one season.
But I do keep seeing
one season in one movie.
I do keep seeing talk that no, for real, Fox is actually talking about bringing it back. So, but I feel like that surfaces every couple of years. I don't know.
Yeah, well, they're bringing everything else back. I don't know.
They were trying to reboot Buffy. Boo.
Sidestep to the last episode of BivBros Show when you shared that one of your new shows to watch is Suits, Evan, which I'm a huge fan of, and I was trying to talk Matt into considering it, and he was absolutely ignoring me and telling me no, hell no, until I showed him what's her name. She plays Jessica in Suits, is in Firefly, and now he's interested.
Zoe. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, Gina's on that show. She, of course, is fantastic.
She's probably my favorite part of that show. So.
Sure. I mean, she's just. You can only imagine that in real life, she's just as badass as she seems to be on the screen. You just reminded me. There was an old 80s or early 90s show called, it was like Canadian, like Night Stalker or Night
Stalker.
Something. It's like a vampire show. He's like a vampire cop.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, Canadian vampire cop show. What's it called? Silk Stalking. No, Forever Night. Yeah, you should go watch that. You're gonna love that.
Yeah, sure. You're really selling it.
But I'll give you the breakdown. Nick Knight is an 800-year-old vampire working as a homicide detective on the graveyard shift in modern-day Toronto. As a result of his feeling guilty for centuries of killing others and seeking redemption for his acts. Most of his colleagues are unaware of Nick's true identity as a vampire. Only his friend, city medical examiner Natalie Lambert, knows about Nick's identity as a vampire. Wow, this is really badly written. Anyway, I don't actually recommend you see this.
How could we get you a job reading subpar, show plots for a living?
Oh man, we should just start producing trailers for shows that have already been canceled.
But I guess I'm going back to the fact that it's time for vampires to come back. This is sort of a segue to let people.
So what kind of vampire show do you want to see, brother?
Well, I think that I'm open for some new stuff. I feel like something like Buffy is it is time for it to make a return because Mom enjoyed the soap opera called Dark Shadows, and there was a lull, and then we had Buffy, and then I feel like these sort of groundbreaking fun. I could go for a new like episodic, character driven, not overtly horrific TV show is what I could do.
Like if they could pull off a good HBO version of Vampire Lestat, that could be interesting.
Sure. Yeah.
Right? If they could do that and do it without it sucking.
Yes.
Although maybe Anne Rice is just too trashy to be interesting. I don't know.
I bet they've tried. Yeah, I don't know. I think I don't know. It feels like it's time.
So what's your favorite kind of? So here's the thing about Buffy. Buffy is not at all a story about vampires. Right. It's a story about
life on a hell.
Being the chosen one. It's a chosen one story. And Buffy is coping with this duty that she has to perform, and that's Buffy's story. Whereas there was actually a vampire story recently, and I never really watched it. I read the books. It's called The Strain, and that is a straight up vampire story.
That was not good.
I think I watched part of an episode and
not good.
So I was going to say, it's interesting that you say that because suddenly in season 3 especially, I'm seeing a lot of correlations between Buffy and Harry Potter. And it's exactly chosen one where she gets really a little bit whiny and whiny and you don't understand what I'm going through, which exactly what we see, kind of Harry wrestle with. That I would give all of this. I didn't ask for this. I would take my parents back in a heartbeat to not be this. And so all I'm now seeing, so it's interesting that you say that that's really and truly. Because I've been wondering why am I getting so much Harry Potter out of this
and Luke Skywalker? I mean, any chosen, insert any chosen one story here,
sure.
and of course in Buffy's case, the reason why it's so amazing is because Joss Whedon knew how to make every other character like. I mean, how many chosen one stories are there? Like millions, probably. But he knew how to make every other supporting cast member somebody that you either felt like or you knew. very few of us can relate to the chosen one, and except that we kind of wish. I mean, I definitely had this feeling with Harry Potter, reading those books, wanting to be the chosen one. Like I've had that desire of, ooh, I want to be special. So I think we can all, find ourselves in that somewhere. But Joss, in this case, he just knew how to build out that world the same way that Lucas knew how to build out the world of Star Wars and make it feel like, oh yeah, this is a real place, and these are real people or aliens doing real things, despite how badly it's written.
Yes.
But the way that it looked, kind of space, even though it was set in a galaxy far away a long time ago, it's obviously there's spaceships and stuff, but the stuff looks old, right? It feels real. Mm-hmm. Anyways.
I just wanted to say, to comment, brother, on that, is that I think you've hit it. The reason that Angel is not, I don't have the warm, fuzzy feelings about Angel that I ever had about Buffy, even though it's a Joss Whedon thing, even though it's a spin-off. Angel was never about the quote-unquote Scoobies. It was always larger than life. It started out as we're saving the world, but there's that whole corporation plot. There's it's a much more outward thing. Firefly is the ensemble, and so we love Firefly because you get to know Joss Whedon is exceptionally good at groups. That's why Avengers, I think, was so good.
Mm-hmm. Team writing.
Team writing, and then something like Dollhouse, which was focused on one person. I couldn't do that. Angel had it had its moments, but still it didn't have that kind of exactly what you were saying. Not only do I not identify with Angel, I don't identify with really anyone else in his crew, and that's okay. It's a different slant, but he does the, oh, I could be that person so well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because I'm exactly like the Hulk.
and he also does an excellent job of showing you that person, but that person is still a little bit heightened reality. It's like because they're all speaking with his snappy voice,
right?
And you know that, right? It's this. I get the same feeling when I've read Tom Robbins or Kurt Vonnegut or something, and I think you can compare Joss Whedon to people like that, mm-hmm. who, his voice is so strong that he's coming out in every single character. That's not always good, depending, but nobody in your real life talks that snappy, right? But it's so much fun. He's so freaking good at it that you just, man, that's good. That's good TV. I'll watch that all day.
Mm-hmm. Chosen One stories. I want them back. I'm ready for. I want some ensemble works. I think it's time for them. I think zombies.
Well, Joss is coming out with something new.
So
eventually, it's not vampires, but it's something.
Okay, I'll be.
Have you not heard about this?
I'm on board. Yeah. I'm on board, and he's not always 100%, but I'm on board for sure. To see what's next.
AK, do you feel like you have a path forward?
I do. And I would also be interested, the 4 or 5 people that are listening to this, mm-hmm. To see what you guys would prescribe next for my vampire expansion adventure.
Please.
I'd love to hear. And I have gone into zombies as well as what was the name of the movie, Evan? Let's plug that.
Anna versus the Apocalypse.
Oh my God, so good.
Yeah.
Anna and the Apocalypse, brother? What is it?
Anna and the Apocalypse. That sounds right.
Yeah. Anna or Anna.
Really great movie to watch on Christmas night. That was how I spent my evening. 10 out of 10.
Shaun of the Dead. Have you seen that?
A long time, like when it came out. A decade old, but
that's arguably my favorite.
I've done that one. I've done Zombieland. What was the other? The Love Story.
Yes,
that came out.
That was good.
Yeah. I don't know, probably 7 or 8 years
I haven't
ago.
seen that.
Can't remember.
Brokeback Mountain.
Yes, Brokeback Mountain. The ultimate zombie story.
What if Brokeback Mountain what if he turns into a zombie?
That'd be quite a statement. That would really be a statement.
It's like, Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. I've never seen that or read that. Did they make that into a movie?
Probably.
Yes, that sounds familiar. Or it's one of those. It's like Jane Austen or Pride and Prejudice or something, but with was it Keira Knightley? I feel like she did, because she's known for doing many of those.
She's in Pride and Prejudice.
Yeah, but I feel like she's done something. I could be making
zombies.
I could be making this up, but yeah, no, that's a thing that has happened. It may not be Pride and Prejudice. It may be another.
Well, we'll have a whole episode on once you bone up on the whole a vampire thing. Then we can do a zombies episode 2. Though I think it's time to move on to either bring something back or move on to something new. It's probably time. And speaking of moving on, I guess we should probably say good day for the day. It sure has been fun to have you, AK, both in the studio and on this podcast as usual.
Thanks for letting me come on and ramble.
Of course.
For another hour or so of our lives. Now Matt and I have to get back to work.
Yeah.
But this was a really fun lunch break. Evan,
yeah.
Thanks for taking yours to do the same.
Yeah. Thanks, brother.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I'll talk about Buffy any day.
All right. Well.
Spike.
Well, I sure do love you, brother, and as
you.
and I'm sure that we'll talk again next week.
Yes, we shall. As always, we're brought to you by BivensBrothersCreative.com. This and today we're brought to you also by akshouts.com.
That's true.
Please go check us out if we can help you with your website or your digital marketing needs. Or if you just want to talk about vampires.
Yeah.
All of those things.
Together.
Yeah.
Until next week.
Until next week.
Namaste to you and your family.